Hi everyone, good morning, good evening. Welcome to Hypersign Ecosystem eMeet. This is probably our first session uh, uh, le- where we will talk about ecosystem in general, like what we are trying to build, who are all are the ecosystem players, what are the incentive models that we are planning to have, how are these stakeholders going to contribute to us, what uh, what they will get out of this ecosystem, right? I know that we have advertised this to today's call, where we would earlier wanted to discuss the SSI business model, but then I realized that it would be nice to first discuss the ecosystem and the stakeholder before jumping into you know uh, the details about the incentives and the business model part of it, because if we don't understand what this ecosystem is for, what's the basically that's the starting point, right? My name is Vishwas Anand and I am the CTO of Hypersign. I welcome all of you to this session, and the first session that we are going to talk about is mostly largely about the ecosystem and its purpose, and the stakeholders which we have visualized are there in the ecosystem. Yeah, so let's just start it. uh, okay. Yep. So I think many of you would have seen this movie, The Terminal, and this as well, The Net, right? And I will, before I go ahead, I will just leave you with one question: that what was the common thing that you see, if you would have watched this movie? What is the common thing that you see in both of these movies, right? And we will come to that discussions at the end of the session. Yeah. So before we go and really get deeper into Hypersign as an ecosystem, uh, I just want to talk about how do we see identity, like what do we understand from identity. I'm sure that you would also have your perspective of what is identity and digital identity, and how do you see identity in web3 or in web2 or in general, right? But I just wanted to talk about first the way we see, and then we see that whether we are aligned with your understanding or not. Yeah. So, what is an identity, right? When we think about this word identity, what hits into our head is we are talking about identifying something, and that something could be a person, human, place, thing, or whatever, based on certain attributes, right? Uh, like you want to identify something using some attributes. These attributes could be, you know, your race, ethnicity, class, language, religion, age, education, and so on and so forth. So, in short, identity is basically the set of attribute which uniquely identify some subject, right? I think this is pretty straightforward, and we all agree to this, to to some extent at least. Yeah, and yeah, you also have option to raise your hand, and please cut me in the middle, and if you have any questions, or if you have any comments, because this is very important part of the session, the first part where we just talk about identity. I just want to see that we all are on the same page or not, right? So feel free to raise your hand, and one of our guys will pull you in onto the stage to speak. What do you, how do you see identity, right? Hello. You guys are able to see my screen and hear me, right? Or no?
Yes, visible and audible both.
Oh, all right. Okay, cool. So maybe Irfan, I think you might have problem. Okay. So as I was talking about identity, right? The way I see identity is basically set of attributes that define uniquely identify some subject, right? But there is one more aspect to it, and that is that identities are contextual, meaning we use we don't have one identity like in real world. If you look at your all your identity documents, you will have 10 of identity documents, and each identity document is used for some purpose. For example, if you have your passport, you probably use this identity document to, let's say, travel to abroad, right, or get visa. If you have your some social like your your government ID card, you probably use this to, let's say, buy a sim, right? If you have maybe prescription, you probably use this prescription as an identity to uh, you know uh, let's say meet a doctor, right, or buy some medicines. So in and all, identities are contextual. There is no one identity. The concept of one identity is wrong, like, because the way we think about identity, like the way the digital identity is being given to us or imposed on us, as like you use one email address, you use one phone number, and to do all the stuffs that you do on the internet, right? That is not really correct, because that's not how we use identity in the real world. We use identity depending on what context are we talking about. So like I said, if you have a passport, you probably go to and get a visa, right? And then you use mix of these identities. Like if you want to get an insurance, you probably if you need a health insurance and if you want to claim it, you probably need your prescription as well as your government identity card that is given to you, right? So so this is how I or we see identity in the real world. No one identity, no concept of one identity is wrong as we think. Now here I will stop and let you comment on it. Like if you think something else, or if you want to comment on the way you see identity, feel free to comment on it and come on the stage and please talk about it. All right, no problem. So now that we believe that, okay, this is how we also see identity in the real world, let's just talk about web 3. Yeah. So in web 3 things are not different. Like it is not supposed to be different. Things are different, but it is not supposed to be. In when we think about web 3 as an identity, and in order to see the web 3 as an identity, we need to look at all the attributes that we have on web 3, right? So what are attributes that you have? Because identity is nothing but set of attributes. So you have, as a person, I have my wallet address, I have all the NFTs token holdings, I have transactional activities, I have my balance. So these are the attributes or the input for those identities that I'm going to build on web3. And it should not be one identity. It should not be seen as a one web3 passport that you are going to use it everywhere in all the apps and all blockchain, everywhere. It shouldn't be like that. Yeah. And one more important thing is that these users or the web3 user exist on multiple chains. When we say web3, we are not referring to one particular blockchain or ecosystem. We are referring to web3 as a whole, right? Like this user might exist on Cosmos ecosystem, they might exist on Ethereum ecosystem, Solana, and whatever, right? So because these attributes which we are talking about, they all are kind of fragmented and kept on different ecosystem. The user is same, and he has been using all of these ecosystems and collecting or producing these kind of attributes. By the way, there is one difference between web3 attributes and the web2 attributes that we have. Most of our web2 attributes, like our age, our race, language, everything is given or issued by some entity. Whereas web3 attributes that we have are mostly we are the owner of these attributes. We generate these attributes. We do the transactions. So that's the one difference which I just wanted to point it out. Yeah. So, and like the way we have identity contextualized in the real world, similarly we also have identities contextualized based on different contexts in the web3 world as well. If you are going for a dapps which is providing you a service of lending and borrowing, you probably use some identity. If you are on the exchange, you will use some different identity. Probably you are if you are trying out some DeFi games, you will use some different identities. So so one thing which is common is there is no the concept of one identity is not right, and the second is the identity is contextual, like whether it's on web 2 or web 3, it is contextual, right? And we Hypersign, we don't when we are building our ecosystem or when we are building an identity infrastructure, we don't see web 3 and web 2 as a separate two separate things. We see identity as an identity. Now there are people in the world who are into web 3, and then there are people in the world who are into web 2, but the philosophy remains the same, right? And it can be summarized in this just two forms, that the concept of one identity is wrong, and second is it is contextual, right? Now we can come to ecosystem purpose. Like, what are you trying to build in Hypersign? Why are you participating in Hypersign? Why are you running the node for Hypersign? There must be something which, I mean, one way to look at it is that yes, there is an incentive, which is why people are. But then, when we say incentive, it is not always monetary, right? Sometimes incentives, feeling good is incentive for me to be in the Web3 space, although I don't own any crypto token. Example, right? So we want to know what is the purpose of this particular ecosystem where you are contributing or participating, right? What you bring on the table, what you get from this ecosystem. But before we go and really come up with our purpose of our ecosystem, so the goal is to come up with one sort of sentence or one phrase which can define our ecosystem purpose. But before we go there, like before we reach there, we first need to understand what was our reason to even start this project, right? Even start thinking about a new ecosystem, right? So we were brainstorming, and these are some sticky notes that we came up with. That okay, so I was speaking, right, that the concept of one identity is wrong, and everywhere on the digital world you have like one email address and one phone number, probably two, and then these two using these two identity elements, everybody is identifying you on the internet, and that is wrong. Why it is wrong? It's fairly simple to understand. It leads to all the privacy issues that you have, because you have one phone number. The moment you give your phone number to someone else, and he will start sharing with everybody, so now you are started getting all the calls, unwanted calls from the services where you never even tried out, right? So of course, so those kind of privacy issues comes. And then ENS, which ENS is also doing the same thing. Like, I know ENS is at least trying to simplify the identity problem, but there are two problems. First, it exists on one ecosystem, just one ecosystem, which is Ethereum. But we know that Web3 users exist everywhere, and tomorrow there is going to be more ecosystems. It's not like only Ethereum or Cosmos is going to be there, right? There will be more ecosystem coming in. So ENS does not entirely solve the problem. And second one is, ENS is trying to link your real world identity, like your name. So now if I say wish.eth, so everybody knows what all wallets I have, and so the concept of whole privacy and Web3 aspect has gone, like it's getting diminished with ENS. dApps, which we look at right now, the dApps allows you access using your wallets, but they don't have any visibility on who this user is. They don't want to know exactly my name or my address just like we have in the Web2 space. But at least they want to know some kind of profile of your, so that they can provide some value added service to you, right? But because of these wallets, you can create thousands of wallets and create accounts. So I think today, in the today's world, no dApp can claim that they have like X number of users, because one user can create 1000 wallets. So dApps have no visibility in the profile that people are logging in. I personally, in my case, what happened that my father sent me 7 times Facebook request, and this was a very this was even before when we have even thought about Hypersign, you know. So I just went and asked him, why are you sending me so many Facebook requests? And he said like he keeps forgetting the password, and hence he is generating a new account and account. And then we realize that the kind of security that we are bringing in, we think that it's one of the best security, right? But we are enforcing these kind of security on the generations, that is the older generations, who do not know how to handle this security. And we all know passwords are not secure anyway. Then everybody is selling my data. The moment I buy a t-shirt on Amazon, or even I add that t-shirt in a cart, I start getting the same advertisement on the Facebook. Now, how the hell Facebook is getting that data if they are not sharing the data, if they are not selling it? Of course, they are selling it, right? All right, sell. I don't have an issue. Why don't you give me the credit, right? And then you have KYC. Like every exchange that you go, you do the same KYC process again and again. Why can't we have a simple UX, or why can't we have a simple, uh, a data sharing or digital identity interaction flow? For example, if you go and apply for a visa, like all your documents are fragmented, it will take 10 days to collect all these documents and give it to this guy. And from and the problem with the business are, it takes another few more days to just to verify all this document. And the problem is because they think that you are not sharing a verified data. Imagine that from the beginning itself you share the verified data, right? So we are frustrated with the UX problem in the digital identity space. We are frustrated with the privacy issues. Uh, we keep getting unwanted calls from the service provider we never tried out, right? And like like for example, if you have if you are an employee and you have your certificate, right? And if you go to try to apply for a job, now this employer has to employ another company who does employee verification process. So he is unnecessarily spending time and energy to just to verify. So why can't verification be very simple? And the last one is that we don't own our any of the data. For example, if I give my university certificate to this employer, and this employer is trying to make a call to my university saying that, hey, please, can you please verify this university, the certificate ID number? And at that moment, if the issuer or my university system is down, then basically I lose my access, right? uh, there are several examples like that. For example, I have got my phone number here in India, and if I travel to Singapore, the phone number stop working, and because the phone number is not working, or the telecom operator does not work there, so I cannot access to my own bank account. And if because I cannot access my own bank account, I cannot pay for the services which I'm trying to use in different countries. So why do I have to like rely on these guys to basically um, you know so so all I'm trying to say is we don't own our data or any of our identity as well. So these were some of our reasons when we were trying to think why are we building this ecosystem. Now, what do we want to do? All right, these were the problem, but what do you really want to do? So definitely we want to start with empowering humans with their data and identity. Yeah, we want to reduce the data leakages. We want them to create as many as wallet as you can. The concept of Web3, like you might be hearing Web3 passport, one Web3 passport, you can use it, and you know, so that itself is wrong. Why do you need to have one Web3 passport? People should be able to create 10 Web3 passports for 10 different purposes, right? So we want to give users an ability to for contextual, identity sharing. We want to simplify and make the onboarding, onboarding users fast. We want to share, we want to limit the sharing of data. Like, uh, if I want to access a particular service, I have to share the entire information. They might not need those entire information, right? The very famous example is that 18-year-old thing, right? Like when you go to a bar, you just need to prove 18, that you are 18 plus. But then you, because there is no way where you can share a piece of information with service provider, you end up sharing entire information. So how can you reduce the data leakages? And if everything goes well, we also want to monetize users about their data, right? So I know that data is very abstract term. It can be simplified in many different ways. Like it can be defined in many different ways. What kind of data are you talking about? Are you talking about personal data? Are you talking about the activities that we do across the platforms? What data are you talking about? So this is not yet very much clear, but we really want to, in future, we want to monetize. We want users to monetize their information. So this is what we want to do. These were the problems that we feel that we want to solve, and this is what we really want to do to solve those problems, right? So now, when we look at the ecosystem as a whole, so this part these are the problems. This is what we want to do, and what we really care about is the data privacy, data leakages, ownership of the data, monetization of the data. We want to have that seamless exchange of data. So ultimately, what we want to do is we want to give users the ability to basically own and control the data. But the question is, why do you want to control and own the data? I want to control and own the data to first, of course, keep my privacy intact, and second, I want to have a seamless, uh, you know, interactions. Whenever I try to access some application or apps, I should have a very seamless interactions with that, with the services. So our whole purpose of building this ecosystem is to make the digital identity interactions seamless as possible, right? So, and of course, to do this, to get to this purpose of ecosystem, we will build either SDKs, APIs, we arrange grant programs, hackathons, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So, is there anything which you want to add or want to comment here? You can raise your hand. Or if you have some other different perspective, you might be thinking, Hypersign as a different way when you probably joined as a validator, and then I am showing you a completely different thing. If that is the case, then also you can come on the stage and talk about it. Okay, so I think we all agree to this. And the last one is who are the stakeholders and we have in the ecosystem. So here in the bottom, you are looking at our purpose, which we want to make digital identity interactions seamless. And from that purpose, we start looking out. So who is the closely aligned members in the ecosystem? First are the individual issuer, service provider, probably enterprises, the dApps developer, validators, uh, the important one. And then you have relayers, because we are in the Cosmos ecosystem. So relayers also are very closely aligned to this purpose. Yeah. And then there are people who don't care about digital identity and all, but they really no, there are people who want to support this ecosystem, right? They do care about the digital identity space, but they are not directly involved, like they are not participating directly. So these could be the investors, accelerators, uh, maybe some auditors who are auditing our code. They don't care whether they are auditing a SSI based code or some other code. They are just trying to you know help us with something. So so these people are there. And then if you look really little bit more out, then we have some people who are indirectly getting benefits from this ecosystem, and those are like airdrop hunters, degens, market makers, because these people don't care what is SSI. They are just be the part of the system, and they are getting benefit out of the system, right? Students are learning, right? But they are not directly involved or participating in the ecosystem. They are not making any transactions as such. And then we also have neutral stakeholders like for example the cloud service provider, or you are also using some service provider, infra provider, right? So they don't care whether you are running a node for SSI or not, but they are part of this system. And we also have few people who could would don't want this ecosystem to grow, right? For example, legacy ID provider. Why do they want a simple ID flow? They already have complex ID flow, and which is selling. So if we simplify that, it's basically taking away their business. So they would not like to, uh, you know, uh, uh, they would not like this ecosystem to grow. But they are part of the ecosystem because they somehow affect this ecosystem, right? So we have to pay equal attention to them as well, right? So this is the thing which I wanted to talk about, mostly the ecosystem and the stakeholders involved, and what are the roles of these stakeholders. Yeah. So yeah, and what's next? Basically, what is the next thing that we want to do? So the objective of these kind of call is to get a little bit more closer to you guys, like maybe to understand our ecosystem well, maybe to have the communication channel open. Like so far you are already running our nodes and you have been communicating, but I want it to be a little bit more close. Uh, I want a little bit more involved in the uh, in taking decisions. I mean, right? Like not just from the tech perspective, also from the if you might have some suggestions. I know that once we get into the SSI business model, I'm sure that many of you would come on board and help us uh, deciding the incentive model, or how will the value flow will happen in the network and things like that. So I want these kind of calls to have that conversation going on, right? So in the next call I'm planning to basically, so we talked about how what is our vision. So I want to show you those visions into some kind of tools, like what are the tools that we have developed, and can you show me that user can create multiple identities, user can create their web3 passports, and can link their wallets, and can create some sort of credentials or things like that. Many of you would not have seen it, so I want to take one session to basically show you all the tools and products that we have planned. And I will also talk about in the next call uh, who all people have are in pipeline which they are integrating, like what all dApps we have, what kind of services that they provide, and they feel that the ID and self-sovereign identity may help them. Yeah. So these are the two discussions I would like to have before we jump into the SSI business model and incentives and all that. Any questions you have? Because this is like my second last slide, and after this I'll just talk about this the image, like the movies. Yeah. Anything which you want to add or talk about? Okay. So. I mean, there are several incident in these both of these movies, but one of the incident which really brought my attention was in in both of this movie. What happened that these guys lost their identity, like the identity which were given by their governments have been revoked, right? and they and the consequences of that they have to face. Like this guy, right, in case of terminal, he was stuck at the airport just because uh, the, like the place where he went, right, I think US, they stopped uh, accepting the document that he was producing, basically his passport and all that, because there was a coup in his country. So it but the point is, it was not his fault that the coup happened, right? So that's what I was trying to tell, that I want people to own their identity. It should not be cannot be taken away just like that, right? So for example, in India, they banned the TikTok, right? Now imagine all those content creators who would have created a lot of content. Now the moment TikTok is banned, these people will not be able to prove that they are good content creators, because they would have been creating the content for several years, right? So they cannot prove any outside the TikTok saying that yes, they are good content creators. Similarly, YouTube and all the platforms, I cannot prove that I own certain credibility out of these platforms. These platforms basically owns all our credibility. So one of the purposes is that, like, how can you empower user with their identity and credibility? Yeah, and same goes with this movie as well, like the net. Like when she came back, she went to Mexico, I think, for some trip, and when she came back, her identity card was invalid because of some reasons, right? So she basically, so nobody was, she was not able to prove her name also. So yeah, okay, so I am done here. Uh, if you have anything to add or comment, please feel free to comment. Otherwise, we'll close the session. Anyone? All right, guys. Then we can close the sessions and have a good night or good afternoon, whatever, wherever you are. Okay. Yep. Thank you very much for joining. See you in the next one.